If you didn't know, I decided to read all the books in the New York Times top 100 books of the 21st century, and today we're going to take a look at Post-War, A History of Europe Since 1945 by Tony Judd. Okay, as you can tell, I did not read this word for word. You can imagine it is over 800 pages and it's quite dense, but let's get into it. A few things that I really enjoyed as I was skimming through this novel is that there was a lot of emphasis on the human experience and the human toll. I think oftentimes when we learn about history in Europe in general, Europe is such a small continent and compared to the rest of North America. And so we're taught about World War II, we're taught about the Cold War, we're taught about the dissolution of USSR, and sometimes because we're looking at those bigger picture items, we lose track of the smaller individuals and the people themselves and their experiences. And I feel like this novel did a really good job on emphasizing each of those individual countries. So as the Soviet Union was breaking apart, as Ukraine, Yugoslavia, Moldova, as they all started to get their own independence and have their own strife, we really got to examine the human experience here and how people on the ground were really starting to create their own societies and their own systems of government. Novels split into 4 different parts. So you have 1945 through the 70s, you have the 70s through the 90s, and then we have the 90s through the early 21st century. So in the 50s, we're looking at the baby boom, and we're looking at economies growing, and the author takes us through each individual country and how they do this. And later on in the 90s, we look at a lot of different cultural movements that are happening and the shift from the importance of common causes. So earlier on in those 50s, 60s, there was this movement toward creating common causes in the welfare state. And then we look at the 90s where self-interest comes about and there's less of helping out your neighbor and more of individual prosperity. One other deep emphasis that the author makes is that Eastern Europe, and especially post-Soviet Union, was far behind Western Europe. So Western Europe probably was most similar to the US and Canada and North America, whereas Eastern Europe was quite held back because of communism in the Soviet Union. I would give this novel maybe an 8. I think it was quite thorough, and I'm really impressed by the depth of understanding from any one person can have for each of these different countries. But I think because that scope is so large, it was really hard to retain a lot of information. It was just a lot to understand. So because of that, it's an 8, but I can see how this is a triumph for the author and historians in general.